Hello, today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. I'm Tony Mangino from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. It's been a while since we've discussed the topic of merger and acquisition activity on Staying Connected, but we will do so today, albeit from a slightly different perspective. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Keith Cook, director here at TC2. Thanks for joining me today, Keith. What's on your mind?
Yes, Tony. Well, this will certainly date me, or both of us for that matter. But you may recall back in the late 90s, a certain high-end German automobile maker merged with one of the big three here in Detroit. Well, that was my first consulting experience where the project involved analyzing, integrating, and combining network contracts for two giant companies into a single entity. It was a large task for sure. And then, ironically, several years after that, that company actually split back apart into two separate companies, and I was involved with that initiative as well. So subsequently, multiple times over the past 15 or 20 years, I've assisted companies in situations just like that.
Yeah, I do remember that events that you mentioned. So it sounds like you have some nuggets of knowledge and insight for us.
Sure do. If you find yourself in such a position, there are several opportunities that you can explore. First, of course, is a detailed risk and opportunity assessment of all the associated network-related contracts. That means checking for and correlating key commercial items like the length of term, revenue or service commitments, your extension options, so on and so forth, to see if there are any short-term issues or risks that require immediate attention.
And if there are any of those immediate issues, those should be addressed first?
Yeah, that's correct. Address those to ensure there are no hidden, unpleasant surprises, or at least find them if they do exist. Then you can move down a level and do a service rate analysis. You might be able to do some cherry picking, for example, for the best rates and cost across various services. And this might be between two contracts from the same supplier, or it could even be across two contracts from different suppliers. Of course, the latter example is more involved from an operational and contractual standpoint, but in either scenario, you often find examples of unit rate arbitrage that you might be able to leverage for some cost savings in the short term. And then along the same lines, you should identify the optimal commercial terms. When does the contract expire? Financial commitments, rate reviews, so on, between two contracts. This, of course, would be limited to the contracts between one supplier.
So, Keith, to be clear, the things you've mentioned so far occur in the short term before any formal combining of disparate and separate service contracts that exist across the two merging entities?
Yes, that's right. And there's no guarantee that you will uncover opportunities, but often this process does, so it's well worth the effort. And it's a good segue into the next step. At some point, and this might be as soon as several months, or it might be as long as a couple of years, you're going to need to work on combining these separate contracts. The options here are wide-ranging and depend on many factors. You may find that you're able to go to market with a fully competitive RFP that could result in consolidation of multiple contracts. Usually, that's the best approach, but there may be factors that inhibit your ability to go to market. Or quite frankly, sometimes there's just simply no appetite for an RFP. The decision criteria on what's the best path forward should be identified, documented, and measured through a formal and rigorous strategic review of your options. Then decide. And this type of work is a precursor for most all our strategic sourcing engagements here at TC2. And even if you're unable or uninclined to do an RFP, you can combine and rationalize your agreements so that you have no more than one contract for each of your major suppliers. We can assist you with doing that and provide the benefit of our current market intelligence on pricing, commercial terms, just to make sure that you are optimizing your end state.
Keith, having done my fair share of deal integration work myself, I have a few things to add to the list of considerations. So as you've properly observed, when integrating two deals from the same supplier, harmonizing the contract term and revenue commitments is a key focus area. You should expect that you'll have non-coterminous agreements to align, and in all likelihood, disparate financial commitments to bring together. So for the sake of discussion, let's assume that your particular situation has both of these attributes. A potential solution in this scenario would be to pursue an overall extension of the new integrated deal to align the terms. However, if the deal with a longer contract timeline has a term commitment that has already been met or is projected to be met within the time frame of the other deal, then this may not even be necessary. Anyway, the potential for extended term can be leveraged for price concessions and an overall more flexible deal structure. Pulling forward or perhaps adding favorable terms such as rate reviews, commitment-free transition periods, and renewal options should be on the short list. There are other things to consider as well. First off, understand that there can be time and complexity involved for the suppliers to modify, replicate, and map your bill groups of each of the underlying entities into a new integrated deal. This is an important nuance as it can lead to delays in billing implementation, which can delay your savings. Next, be sure to identify and pull forward any custom reporting that one or the other of the entities has come to rely on. Finally, this is the time to consider if you have account team support that you'd like to retain or not from either of the legacy accounts. So Keith, back to you. Is there a gotcha in here anywhere?
Well, maybe. What I find is that our clients often have the best intentions, but other priorities sometimes take over and it just doesn't get the proper attention it deserves, or it just never happens at all. And again, we can help with that. Finally, I'd like to suggest that this is a great time to consider one other thing. One of our core competencies at TC2 is our contract compliance and optimization practice. Think of it as an audit of your services and invoices, but on steroids. We go much deeper and are more nuanced than what a TEM or telecom expense management company does. We come in behind TEMs all the time and find things that they haven't found or haven't suggested. So while we feel that there's always an opportunity for that for anyone, if you find yourself in a merger situation, it's just like a doubly ripe opportunity. And we will do this on a contingency basis, so there's no upfront investment required and zero risk for our clients.
Great discussion today. Thanks, Keith. So if you're staring down the barrel of a deal integration, or you'd like to learn more about this topic, or if you have other ICT needs, you can contact Keith, me, or any of our TC2 and LB3 colleagues by giving us a call or shooting us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, by checking out our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.